Hi, welcome back on board. This is the second in a series of video blogs we did of a motorcycle trip around New Zealand in 2017. We'd spent a few days in Queenstown, had a great time there, and headed out early for our next overnight destination in Franz Josef. Took off fairly early. It was pretty brisk sort of morning, and the closer we got up into the mountains, the mist closed in a little bit. We had a little bit of light rain. Probably the biggest thing that slowed us down was the amount of traffic on the road, and as I said, there was a fair distance to cover, and the traffic certainly didn't help. The next few shots are stops along the way. We had stopped at Cromwell and had breakfast there, and then proceeded along, heading up towards the Haas Pass, and these are just a few photos of some of the roads and towns we went through. Ultimately we were going to stop at Haas for lunch and then proceed along to Franz Josef, and this is just a couple of shots of one-way bridges and so on. This is Bruce Bay, an interesting little place. A heap of stone monuments along the river have been put up by the tourists, and as you can see we proceeded into Franz Josef. These are shots of the town and where we pulled up. One of the main reasons we wanted to get through to Franz Josef was to try and catch a helicopter flight out over the glaciers and a quick look at the top of Mount Cook. Traffic slowed us down quite a bit. There was an awful lot of camper vans and so on, but there's a few shots of Lauren helicopter trip up over the top of Franz Josef to the glacier and onto the top. Along the way there was a few stops on top of the mountain, and the video pretty well speaks for itself. We were extremely lucky once again with the weather, and it had been the first day that most of the choppers were up in the air for about nearly a week, so once again we really did well with the weather. As you can see, there was a fair amount of helicopter traffic up on top of the mountain. Lauren said it was like a mini airport coming and going. She had a great time. It's been a few minutes walking around up there and kicking the snow around, and then they took off from there and proceeded to head back over towards Franz Josef and the glacier, which was certainly a really spectacular flight. We walked the glacier a few years ago, and this time we sat out and had a cup of coffee while Lauren did the filming up on top for us. as Lauren was doing most of the filming up on top of the mountains, Kathy and I managed to get a chill moment for 10 minutes, have a cup of coffee and a quick walk around town. As I mentioned, it was a pretty long day from Queenstown through to Franz Josef, and we were probably all glad to get off the bikes. The next shot shows us a picture of how Lauren felt at the end of the day on the bike. We had a great night in Franz Josef, went out for dinner and walked around. Lauren caught up on her Zeds, and the next morning we headed out and we were making our way over to Murchison, where we stayed the next night. The morning was once again fairly brisk in the morning, but it cleared through the day and we had a really good run. We kept pretty well most along the coast to Greymouth, where we pulled up and had lunch, and then from there we proceeded to cut inland and back up into the mountains again, heading towards Murchison. I've said it and I'll probably say it 100 times more, the scenery through the top of the mountains was just absolutely spectacular. Traffic once again slowed us down. There's not much you can do about it, but the roads were in fairly good nick for most of the day. A lot of landslides as we got into the mountains, and that also slowed us down a bit. This is the turn off going over the river, turning left and heading into Murchison. From this point here, the traffic got very, very heavy due to the earthquakes the year before. The coast road was out of action, so everything coming from the North Island through Picton heading to Christchurch had to come up into Murchison and then back down that highway on the inland road. So it really slowed things down a bit. Considering how busy it was, Murchison, we managed to find a motel there that had a room to spare, and we had dinner at the local pub, which we had a lot of fun. Met a couple of different travellers along the way, and they gave us a good laugh. From Murchison we headed off once again early in the morning, making our way up towards Nelson, and then from Nelson across the coast road towards Picton. It's probably fair to say it's probably some of the best motorcycle riding you can do, that stretch between Nelson and Picton, and it was that busy on the road. I didn't get a chance to do a lot of filming, but it gives you some idea of just what a pretty part of the country it is. As I say, once we left Nelson, we went out along the edge of the Tasman Bay and then cut inland. We pulled up at a place called Cullen Point Lookout, and that's pretty well the road. Then started to follow a series of bays along the coast that took us into to Picton. Grove Arm is the arm of water body that comes into Picton, and that's where the ferries leave heading to the North Island. As we're coming down off the top of the mountains into Picton, some of the scenery was just spectacular, looking out over the ocean, and it's certainly a boatie's paradise up there. Picton was a really beautiful little town, sat right down on the bay, and add to the amount of boats and of course the ferry harbour there, a very, very pretty little spot. We spent most of the afternoon having a quick look around Picton, various sites and a couple of side roads up into the mountains to have a quick look around. Once again, it had been a fairly long day and we enjoyed our stay in Picton and got ourselves all organised for the next day, which is getting on the ferry and getting ourselves over to the North Island.